Yo, what's going on guys, Arekkz here and welcome back to another Division video. Super exciting today, we have finally got a trailer and a release date for the 1.2 update titled Conflict. It launches this month on the 24th of May, that is next Tuesday, that's a week today. And the trailer includes a load of new details about some of the cool stuff coming up, gear sets, new weapons, the incursion, things called high value targets, and also the ability to hijack extractions. Yes, that's right, super exciting stuff, so make sure you stick around because there is lots of cool stuff to talk about. And there's also some extra information in this video that was not part of the trailer, but was instead part of an entry on the Ubisoft blog, which I'll also link down below. So if you guys do enjoy this video and you're hyped, then drop a like down below and also leave a comment and let me know what you think. So, kicking things off, firstly we're going to run through the trailer and I'll of course also inject some extra information as and when it is relevant. First thing we saw is of course a look at the brand new incursion, which is now called Clear Skies and is not called Broken Circle as it currently says in game. And whereas the last incursion, Falcon Lost, focused around the LB, of course now we've defeated them and their leader, this one now focuses around the Arekkz. It says they've basically moved in and they've taken command of sort of like some anti-air turrets. They are basically maintaining control over Manhattan's airspace, which is of course a bad thing for us. So it's our task to go in, but if we take a look at the Q&A, it actually seems like Clear Skies is going to be a different style incursion, so it's not just going to be another wave-based activity. And the reason I say that is because on the blog post, if you look at the Q&A, one of the first questions is, are there checkpoints? And one of the first answers is yes, there is a checkpoint after the first encounter. So, the fact that they reference the first encounter means that this incursion is broken into, I would imagine, a number of different encounters. And of course, if you play Falcon Lost, you will know there is one single encounter, which is of course just the 15 waves, and once you've done that, it's complete, and of course Falcon Lost didn't have any checkpoints. So with that and that alone, it already makes it sound like it could be different. Admittedly, we don't have all the finer details yet. It could well be some wave-based encounters followed by, some more stuff. But who knows, but for the time being, it at least sounds slightly different. Also, the blog post did speak slightly about the loot you'll be getting. It said that on hard mode, you can expect high-end items with a 204 gear score, and gear set items with 214 gear score every time you complete the mission. And you do get double rewards the first time you complete the incursion every single week. So, that basically makes it sound like completing the incursion on hard mode will only give you 214, but it will give it to you every single time, which is of course a reliable way to farm. Kind of like we have it now. However, challenge mode will now give you 204 high-end items and 240 gear set pieces every time you complete the incursion, and of course double rewards upon completing it the first time that week. So that does now mean that you can farm a challenge mode incursion for 240 items every single time. They didn't say in the Q&A whether they'd be updating the existing incursion, Falcon Lost, but for the time being the Clear Skies one will allow you to farm 240 gear pieces reliably. Moving on from there, the next part of the trailer speaks about new gear sets and of course new high-end weapons. The first thing it does is pan around the weapons, which look pretty cool, and also some of these do have some rather fancy paint jobs, which makes me think they might actually be named high-ends, but some of them could also just be new weapon types regardless. But if you actually take a look at this image, which was also on the blog post, this details the 4 weapons. You have the Medved Saiga 12 shotgun, which is this one I believe. You then have a semi-automatic shotgun, which wasn't listed on this image, but of course that's what it looks like here. Looks kind of like one of the ones that the enemies use, which could be really cool. You then have the Hungry Hog M60 LMG, and given that it's got a name like the Hungry Hog, I would imagine that's a named high-end, but again I could be wrong. You also have the Centurion M1911 pistol, which I'm assuming is this one down here. Again, given the name Centurion, I would imagine it's also a named high-end. And of course, we do have the Historian that didn't make it into the last update, which is an M18. As for the gear sets, there are 4 new ones being added. You have Final Measure, Lone Star, Predator's Mark, and Hunter's Faith. Now, there aren't any fine details on these, but the Final Measure set is referred to as Diffuser, the Lone Star set is referred to as Survivor, the Predator's Mark set is referred to as Striker, and the Hunter's Faith set is referred to as Sniper. Now, Hunter's Faith, interestingly, does appear to have the same icon as the Sentry set. Whether that's intentional or whether, of course, that just basically means it's sort of a similar set, we'll have to wait and see. But given that's referred to as Sniper, I would imagine that while Sentry is often used, preferably with snipers, it doesn't necessarily have to be a sniper set, but this one here I would imagine is geared towards that, because they did say in the recent state of the game that they wanted these new gear sets to be tailored around specific weapon types to try and encourage people to use different things. So if Hunter's Faith is sniper, maybe Striker could be focused around LMGs, given that we see this guy wielding an LMG. Perhaps Lone Star has something to do with shotguns, given that this person is wielding one of those new shotguns. And as for the Diffuser one, I'm not really too sure. Maybe there's some sort of explosive component in the new incursion that kind of makes this viable. I'm not too sure. For the time being, we'll have to wait and see. Moving on from there, the next thing they spoke about in the trailer were high-value targets. We actually get a look at the in-game menu for this one, and if we zoom in right at the top, we can take a look at the description. It says, accepting a high-value target mission begins it right away. you will only have a certain time to hunt down the high value target before time runs out. For high risk targets, you only have one attempt to succeed with the mission. And if we then scroll down, you can of course see you have things like Devil Squad, where you've got to take out Sergeant Stein, Starman, find the Starman, Cougar Squad, Sergeant Pollard, etc. But the interesting thing is if we go down here to the bottom right, we see something we haven't seen before. Target intel. It currently says there 5, and if you then look back on the left, you can of course see that the 5 is in white, whereas the ones down there, 10 and 15, are in red. So I would imagine target intel is some kind of new currency, not in the sort of spending sense, but in the sense that obviously you need to get target intel in order to do these missions, and then once you've got enough, I imagine you can then go off and do them. I would hazard a guess that the more expensive missions will of course yield better rewards or perhaps be harder, but either way, that is something new. But if we then jump over to take a look at the Q&A again, there are a few questions here which will shed a little bit more light. Firstly, they said, can you elaborate a bit more on high value targets? And they said that high value targets are dangerous faction leaders. They are a threat to society and need to be stopped. You complete search and destroy missions to be granted enough intel to find the whereabouts of these targets, and there are both daily and weekly high value target contracts, and some of them will require a group effort to complete. I would imagine that a weekly reward would be much greater and therefore would probably be much more difficult than say a daily one. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an answer. You have to go and do search and destroy missions to get intel, and once you have enough intel you can go and take out the high value target. And then if we jump back to the trailer, finally the other new thing, and this is something that I appreciate there's probably going to be a mixed opinion on this one. It's something that I personally am really happy about because I spend a lot of time in the Dark Zone, and anything that kind of creates conflict is something that I enjoy. I can appreciate that some people might not like this, but you can now hijack extractions. Up until now, you know that the second you put something on the rope, it's safe. Even if you die, it's safe, it gets out. But as of the update next week, that is no longer going to be the case. Someone can now run up to the extraction and they can cut the rope. When they cut the rope, it drops the loot down on the ground, meaning you can then go and pick it up. And it means your extraction is not safe until the rope has gone up, which technically speaking makes more sense. I mean, it seems a little bit weird from a narrative point of view that the second you put something on the rope, you can just walk away and leave it for 30 seconds and no one will ever take it. So it does actually make more sense, but it does of course also mean that you will have to stay until the extraction is complete to ensure you can get your gear out. That being said, you can't just cut the rope and run away free. Cutting the rope does turn you rogue. They said this in the Q&A. So with that in mind, if someone is going to try and cut your rope, you are of course going to be made aware. But again, it does mean that you are going to have to get into the habit of staying and defending something if you want to get it out. However, on top of that, not shown in the trailer, but again shown on this image and referenced in the Q&A, they also spoke about sealed caches. Now the image here says, named enemies in the Dark Zone can now drop sealed caches that contain mystery items. And while the image only says mystery items, the Q&A says that sealed caches contain mystery items which include gear, Division Tech and Dark Zone funds. Also, they then went on to say that sealed caches are contaminated and therefore need to be extracted, so they are seen as regular Dark Zone loot. But of course that does mean that if you extract a cache, you're kind of getting more than one item, you're getting potentially, well, a few things inside, which is really cool. And that is pretty much it. That is everything that we saw in the trailer, and that was on the blog post in this image. So hopefully you guys found it helpful. Of course, if you do want to see the trailer for yourself, I will link it down below, and I will also link the Ubisoft blog post so you can see the Q&A for yourself. Definitely let me know in the comments down below what you think about these new changes. I imagine there will be some kind of conflict with some of the changes. I appreciate some people might not necessarily be a fan of the Dark Zone cutting the rope, but that is, of course, why the update is called Conflict. Either way, there are some really cool sounding changes, and of course, now that we have a date, I'm hoping that the guys will do some sort of special report soon, kind of like they did last time, where they actually showed us some gameplay from, say, the Incursion, spoke about some of the other things, spoke about maybe the gear sets and all that stuff. So as and when we do get more information, I will definitely be sure to let you guys know. But for the time being, thank you very much for watching, take it easy, catch you next time, peace out.